Standard protocol for Marvel movies nowadays is that you have to wait till the end of the credits. But here, waiting isn't so bad because, Foo Fighters. Thor is directed by Kenneth Branagh, written by Ashley Edward Miller, Zach Stentz, and Don Payne. And this movie stars Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, Tom Hiddleston, and Anthony Hopkins. Now, in Thor, Thor, the god of thunder, has pretty much been banished to Earth by his father Odin because he's not ready for the throne. He's a very arrogant dude who's very hot-headed. He just wants to, fight and get into war. And he's deemed unworthy by his father, and he's sent down. That gives his brother Loki, the god of mischief, kind of like time to plan his way to the top to the throne. And on Earth, Thor has to kind of learn how to be worthy of wielding his power again. Now, up to this point, the Marvel movies in this Marvel Cinematic Universe had always been very grounded, very science-based. You have the two Iron Man movies and you have the Incredible Hulk. Now, Thor was the first one to really introduce this fantastical element to things. This is a superhero franchise. You need something really, really crazy in there. And Thor really continues the Avengers build-up. Doesn't just continue, it really promises that, there's going to be the Avengers and you have to look forward to it because, at the end of the credits it says Thor will return in the Avengers. And more we're seeing Shield pop up. We're hearing mentions of Tony Stark and Bruce Banner. And just like the other Marvel films at this point, Thor is incredibly entertaining, but it is undoubtedly problematic. First of all, the visual effects in this movie are obviously not real. This isn't like Iron Man or the Hulk, wherein, it's supposed to look like it's of this world. This is Asgard. So it obviously doesn't look real, but it still looks good. This is kind of like world building on a small scale because, we see Asgard, we see Jotunheim, but we don't see them like full view and stuff. We don't get to see like the streets and whatever, but the stuff we do get still looks great. Asgard looks as royal as it should be. Jotunheim looks as desolate as it should be. And I just want to say that my favorite visual effect here is I'm a fan of the whole Bifrost thing when they go on like warp mode from Star Trek, and it just looks cool. But I was also surprised to see there's a good amount of makeup and practical effects put to use here. Like Luffy, the king of Jotunheim, is a guy wearing makeup. All the fighting looks like it's being done like on set, no CGI fights. Costumes also are very well designed, I think, especially the ones worn by the Asgardians, of course. They don't look ridiculous because, looking at the comics, how Thor looked in the comics, you can't really imagine him on Earth. It might look a bit weird, but here they do, make Thor's costume look, modern enough. Now, a lot of people, like, one of their complaints about Thor is they think it's kind of slow, especially when Thor gets to Earth, and I disagree. I actually think it's paced very well. The time on Earth, I think, doesn't drag on for me because they do try and make it funny, and it is funny just to see Thor kind of adjust to this life here. And it's also because you can kind of see Thor's internal struggle. You know that he's on Earth for a reason, that he's trying to learn something that he does not yet know. So it does stay intriguing for me. But one thing that really surprises me about Marvel movies is that it's always like one of the strongest parts is really always the acting, which is kind of surprising from a superhero movie because lots of people think that superhero movies are for the action and whatnot, but people keep forgetting that all these Marvel movies are extremely well acted. Hemsworth in 2011 like pretty much came out of nowhere as this big muscular blonde dude, and he is really really great as Thor. He really captures Thor's spirit, and I love how the eventual transformation Thor goes through. You can really see the difference between how he was before. He was all, he's very show offish, he's very, very brash. And then when he changes, he's very noble. And I like, it's such a subtle change, but he really captures it. And the scene where he's without the shirt on, I was with a bunch of guys, like my male classmates from high school. And when that scene came up, we were just like, you got a good body. Yes, at that moment, we actually found someone hotter than Natalie Portman. Oh my god. Idris Elba is really good as Heimdall, although he doesn't really get that much, but he's an interesting character. And Anthony Hopkins as Odin, he's really, really fantastic. This is Anthony Hopkins, of course he's going to be fantastic. But the guy who steals the show definitely is Tom Hiddleston as Loki, and it's reached the point where he is more popular than Chris Hemsworth as Thor, because he really does bring something so slimy, it's so seductive about his character. And what's interesting to watch about Tom Hiddleston's performance is that you don't really know what he's thinking of. Like he really pulls that off. He is very mischievous, and his plan is so crazy, but at the same time, like it's very intriguing. Kenneth Branagh as a director, he's very capable, surprisingly, with both the action and the dialogue scenes and stuff. And I think he really was a good choice because he was able to juggle the Asgardian stuff. And it's sometimes for other directors might be kind of hard to combine these two worlds of something as noble and out of this world as Asgard with our Earth. But he's so used to dealing with Shakespeare stuff, which is pretty much another planet at this point. So I think he was a good choice. But Thor is not without its problems. One of my problems was that I don't really get a sense of place with Asgard, and I really think Asgard should have been a bigger part of the movie because this is Thor. It's our introduction to Thor. We should see his home realm and stuff, and it doesn't really feel very real because we don't get in depth to Asgard. We just see it from afar. We see like big structures and that's it. And you don't really get the sense of there are people who live in Asgard and that they're in danger. It's just Thor and Odin, the other guys. And I also have a problem with how things don't feel very metal. What I mean by that is like Mjolnir, Mjolnir. How am I pronouncing that? Anyway, the hammer Thor uses. It's never felt heavy to me. Like I know it's Thor and he's strong and all, but it just when I look at it, I really do think it's just made out of styrofoam or something. Really, and I've never ever gotten the sense that that hammer is heavy. That sounds like such a nitpick, but I do think it also kind of spills over to the costumes and stuff. They don't look, especially when they get onto Earth. The costumes don't look really authentic and made out of metal and stuff. I don't know. I also have a nitpick. This is a really, really small nitpick though about how loud the destroyer is. That big robotic metal thing, and when it just opens its mouth and goes, "Ee," it's just really, really loud, so blaring. And they could have turned it down honestly because I remember my ears hurting when I first watched in the theater, and my ears keep on hurting whenever I hear it. My biggest complaint though about Thor is that the human characters on Earth are very underwritten. Especially Natalie Portman. She has a very pretty face and she's a good actress. It's just that she has nothing to work with. Dr. Eric Selvig's probably the only one who gets a lot of stuff because he knows the most about what's going on behind the scenes. And Kat Dennings is funny in this movie. It's just that as characters they don't really have anywhere to go. And because Natalie Portman's character isn't very developed, the romance between Thor and Jane it just really comes out of nowhere for me. I didn't buy it, and I wasn't really rooting for it or anything. I mean, I guess you could root for it just to see them kiss, because two beautiful people kissing is like I don't know fireworks. Ultimately, Thor is just an okay movie. It was very ambitious, and I don't think it was able to carry all those ambitions. But I'm glad they were ambitious. Like I'd rather see an ambitious take on Thor than a very safe take on Thor. And like all other Marvel movies, this is very, very entertaining. Like Marvel never fails in that aspect. But lots of problems. But again, something you can keep watching. So that is my review of Thor. What did you guys think of Thor? Have you seen it? Have you not? Whatever you think, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment and let's have a conversation.